For me, the sex was incredible. My name is Roger. My girlfriend Jenny lay next to me. I was very surprised when she asked me if I'd ever looked into the possibility of penis enlargement. I had heard this before. My response was, I would, if I knew where to go. That one sentence led me to the brick building in the woods, Dr. Lisa Dick's clinic. Jenny told me Dr. Dick has helped many of her friends' boyfriends and husbands, explaining she was a sex therapist that used unconventional methods which actually over time enlarge both dimensions of a male's penis. Dr. Dick was not a medical doctor. She did have a PhD. I later learned it was from a university in Granada. It didn't matter though. She was entitled to use the appellation of doctor. Jenny is very important to me. I agreed to go to this place for her. She took me at my word and made the appointment for me. The lobby of the clinic looked like any other medical office. Behind a window was a very pretty blonde nurse. I was glad I was the only one in the waiting room. This is because when the nurse rose to get my chart, my eyes bulged and my cock jumped to immediate action. She was clad in a shiny red rubber miniskirt that clung to her extraordinary body like skin. The top white shiny rubber that formed a blouse fit perfectly around her ample and very well-shaped breasts. Her legs were incredible, and on her feet were shod with what looked like, to me, like 6-spiked heel. My member was throbbing. I was already grateful for Jenny's concern, but now I anticipated this office as a place that I would be visiting regularly in the near future. This was terrific. When she returned to the window, she smiled and told me it would only be a few minutes. I waited. I wish I could say patiently. My thoughts were not of Jenny at the moment, but I was thinking of how good it would be if the nurse at the window was involved with what I thought was to be an examination and a consultation. I was as hard as a rock and getting harder. My pants were spotted as my member continued to spurt pre-cum. With no place to go but my undershorts, then onto my pants. It was a bit embarrassing, but after all, with a dish like that, nurse up front, what could Dr. Dick expect? A door opened. I was beckoned to follow a petite brunette who was similarly attired to the nurse behind the window. She was certainly as good-looking as her associate. I was led into a room that looked like more of an operating room than an examination room. But who can argue with the success that Jenny's friends males obtained here at the clinic? In the room stood 2 other women dressed identically to the others. I had the pleasure of gaping at. But now I was so hot. I wanted any and all of them to join me in my consolation. A tall blonde ordered me to strip naked. With her, pouty red lips. As I disrobed, she took my clothes off and then put them in a box. I was stripped naked and directed onto what appeared to be an operating table with stirrups protruding from its end. It is amazing how much confidence one has when deeply in love with a superior woman. Jenny had sent me here. It was clear my penis was not as large as she would have liked it. I took her words to mean that it was definitely not adequate to satisfy her. To me, it meant that I did not do something about my small, inadequate cock. I should move on. That being the case, I had every incentive to do what was necessary to deal with my genital problem. After all, this was not the first time the inadequacy of my cock size was pointed out to me. As soon as I was on the table, 3 women, all dressed in very sleek rubber nurse outfits, converged on me, had my arms pinned, and strapped me to the table as followed. By tightly strapping my legs into the stirrups, 2 hefty straps, one over my chest, the other over my abdomen, bound me to the table. I could not move. My cock stood up straight between my spread eagle legs. I was totally distracted by the woman. When I was firmly fastened to the table, I heard the whir of a machine. It was a hair clipper that began removing all of my pubic hair. After all that hair was removed, the same area was lathered with wet, foamy shaving cream. Then, a nurse's hand grabbed the head of my cock and stretched out my ball sack, and a cold steel blade swiped against the sensitive skin of my scrotum to shave the remaining pubic hair from my genitals. I thought for a moment that my genital problem was going to be solved with castration because I was too pathetic to fix. The same cold blade shaved my inner and upper thighs, though I had no idea why. Once I was cleanly shaven and secured, fastened down, all three began discussing my inadequately tiny penis. Their talk turned to ridicule, then to encouragement that Dr. Dick was just what I needed. I lay there vulnerable to any whim. Women had wondering what was going to happen. It seemed forever before I heard the click of the heels on the hard ceramic tile floor resonate off my tiled walls. My cock was now throbbing. I began dreaming of the meat this woman would add to my throbbing cock. The anticipation was taking my breath away. I still did not know why I was totally immobilized, but there must be a reason. Was Dr. Dick like anything of her gorgeous assistance? I still did not know why I was totally immobilized, but there must be a reason. Was Dr. Dick anything like her gorgeous assistants? As the clicking got louder, my erection got stiffer, and I began sweating with anticipation. The door to the operating room blew open, and in walked a goddess. Dr. Dick, a leggy Amazon princess, posing as a sex therapist and a surgeon specializing in tawny cock enlargement. The three nurses were knockouts, but they were nothing compared to Dr. Dick. She started me down and smiled, then began petting my cock. It responded, of course. She directed one of the nurses to measure me. The nurse called out, 6 inches by 5.8 inches. A worm. No wonder you are here, commented Dr. Dick. She grabbed my balls, squeezed until I grimaced, then called out another measurement, which I did not recall. She had a device in her hand. It was like a pizza cutter, only it had just pins jutting out from it. She smiled at me, then the pinwheel was run up and down my stiffened shaft. She explained it was a sensitivity test. Each run up and down my hard cock became more intense. It began to hurt. I saw her tongue swing back and forth. Her lips. She was hurting me on purpose, and I enjoying it. Then each of the nurses took their turn, occasionally wiping the blood that seeped from the numerous pinholes the medical instrument had made on my sex tool. Next, they placed a condom on my cock, leaving several inches of thin latex hanging beyond the head of my cock. I was surprised when a naked male was brought into the room. "We need his spunk slave." Those words startled me. There was a nurse on each side of me. Their breasts hovered over my face. Then I felt the soothing massage of my prick by a pair of well-schooled lips. It did not take long before I exploded, filling the condom. By now, I was feeling quite good. Dr. Dick went through the measurement procedure again. 5.5 inches by 5.3 inches. Ball sack, nil, were the words I heard. No wonder Jenny sent you here, boy. I lay there demoralized. That is until Dr. Dick said, "Ready him for the treatment." When I tried to ask a question, I was told to remain silent. There were mirrors above me that allowed me to see what was going on all over the room. Having Dr. Dick near me was enough to keep me hard, albeit smaller than a few minutes ago, but throbbing hot nonetheless. I saw 2 latex-clad nurses holding a white pail into which Dr. Dick was pissing. A nurse then poured a pot of steaming hot coffee into the same pail. That was very puzzling. When I saw the condom that I had filled held above the pail with my sperm dripping into the pail, I became scared as hell. Terrified is a more appropriate word. The mixture was poured into a rubber enema bag, which was hung from a stand to the table I was on. The tubing hung down. One of the nurses lubricated the end of the tubing with her saliva, sucking it seductively as if giving the tubing head, and deftly inserted the end into my tight cherry asshole. Then she opened up the valve below the enema bag and watched the mixture of piss, spunk, and coffee flow into my bowels. When the bag was empty, another naughty nurse removed the tube from my asshole and inserted a substantial butt plug. I say substantially because it took an effort to fully insert it. My innards began to hurt when you expel the fluid that had been placed inside me. The plug was like a permanent dam. The agony showed on my face as the doctor and her associates began describing my plight, coupled with abundant laughter. Her associates were enjoying what was happening. My pain became worse and worse as I lay there helpless. I did not know anything could hurt me like this. I was wondering why there seemed to be so much pleasure from my agony. My cock, strangely, was still hard and throbbing now. How could this help to enlarge my penis? I felt a rubber gloved hand on my cock. When I looked, I saw a catheter being inserted into my penis. The pain from the fluid had filled my colon. It was getting unbearable. It seemed from the look on Dr. Dick's face she was enjoying every minute of my anguish. I tried to move, thinking I could find some relief, but that was not possible. The catheter was being directly inserted through my urethra into one of the vas deferens, the tube through which semen flows from the epidermis into the urethra. I do not know all these terms, but the nurses did, as they maneuvered the catheter where they wanted it. Then I felt the hot fluid flowing into my ballsack. In seconds, my balls were on fire. I could not move. I began begging for relief. I was met with hysterical laughter at my plight. The doc placed her face directly above me. She had a cruel smile on her face. "You are slave class, pig. You do not deserve a woman like Miss Jenny. Certainly not as her lover. Her slave, possibly. That is what we are determining now. So far, you're not doing well." With that, she spit onto my face, showing her scorn. My balls were now ablaze. I cannot stand the pain. I prayed I would pass out. I knew I was crying like a baby, begging anything to stop all of this. A nurse told me to shut up. This was just the beginning. She reiterated, "This is what is needed for the slave class males to realize what their place is like for toys, for the superior female class." It had to be the stuff they were pumping into me through the IV. They had inserted in my arm that was keeping me from passing out. I could see the tube leading into my arm. I was being kept awake and alert so that they could enjoy my agony. Why? At this point in my story, I should explain there are things I did not know and would not learn until I was back in Jenny's house. Everything was being videotaped, and Jenny, soon to be Miss Jenny, was observing everything, looking through a one-way mirror. At times unknown to me, she even participated. Next, a machine rolled to my operating table. I was bound, and wires from it were now attached to my cock and parts of my inner thighs close to my genitals. A wire from the machine was also plugged into a receptacle on the table. I learned that later this was attached to a console that was located behind the one-way mirror. On the consoles were buttons that Miss Jenny could push to send a high-voltage charge to my cock whenever she disposed to do so. Dr. Dick, or any of our nurses, could also send a jolt into me as well. Dr. Dick told me I was a very entertaining specimen. The victim was more realistic. She loved the way my wrinkled-up expression with pain. With that, she sent a high-voltage spike to my cock, which brought a piercing scream of agony from my mouth. A nurse laughed, telling me that they were trying to shock my cock to grow. She told me not to worry, as it would grow out of a slave class no matter what. That my cock was a pathetic thing. Doctor added I should have more respect than to try and please a woman with my pathetic member. She explained to me what was happening now was more proper use for me and meaning to my cock. After all, there were millions of short-dicked males like me who should be made available for fun. She was having with me today. She let me know that the best was yet to come. I do not know why, but my cock remained erect throughout my agony. Doctor began to question me. "Tell me, what is your purpose in life? Do you even know?" "I am an accountant. My purpose is to work hard, get married, have children, be a family man." When I finished speaking, a more severe jolt was rendered to my hapless penis and thighs. I writhed, jerked, and reacted, but I was unable to move or do anything about what was happening. You are giving me a lot of pleasure. I enjoy watching the conversation of a fool to reality. The longer it takes, the more fun it is for me. With that, another jolt hit me. I felt my eyes bulge. I could see the pleasure my doc was experiencing at my expense. Meanwhile, I thought I was going to burst. Dr. Humiliation pressed on my abdomen. The cruel smile of her face displayed her intent. It's hard to describe when one woman believes he is about to bust. She whispered, "You have a lot to learn. You must be patient. The best is yet to come." Even my desperate mind could interpret that the experiment was far from over. What I could not understand was why Jenny wanted me here. All of this was not only for her personal pleasure, but for her pleasure as well. I began praying to God to take me out of this. I wanted to pass out, but I knew I couldn't. The endorphins in my brain were working overtime. Whatever my pain threshold was, it was even greater than ever. I do not know how I managed to deal with that I was experiencing or what was coming my way. Everything on my body was being ravaged, and more than that, was levied onto me more than my tormentors enjoyed it. To her, I was a mere recreational toy, a victim of her experimental comedy. I could not imagine that Jenny had a part of this. Or what was I supposed to lead to? The end.